Imagine a chessboard stretching from the Mediterranean to the Persian Gulf, every square holding a story, every move rippling through the lives of millions. In this game, one player's strategy can shift the balance of power, ignite conflicts, or forge unlikely alliances. That player is not always the one you see on the news. Sometimes it works in the shadows, pulling strings others don't even know exist. Tonight, we are going to step behind the headlines, beyond the noise, into the very heartbeat of Middle Eastern politics, to uncover the role of a nation whose influence is as subtle as it is undeniable. You will hear of its history, its ambitions, its rivalries, and its resilience. A story not told in black and white, but in the deep, rich colors of culture, faith, and strategy. By the time this journey ends, you won't just know about Iran's role in the region, you'll understand why it matters to the entire world. So listen closely, because every word will pull you deeper into a reality where history whispers, politics roars, and the future is being written right now. Iran's influence in the Middle East is not a recent development. It is the product of a civilization that stretches back thousands of years, long before the modern borders of the region were drawn. From the grandeur of the Achaemenid Empire to the cultural richness of the Safavid dynasty, Persia has been a central player in shaping the political, cultural, and economic fabric of the region. This deep historical presence has given Iran a sense of identity and purpose that goes beyond mere survival in a volatile geopolitical landscape. It sees itself not just as a nation among nations, but as a civilization with the duty to shape the course of the region's future. Its geography reinforces this role, bordering key states, controlling vital trade routes, and possessing access to both the Persian Gulf and the Caspian Sea. Iran's location has made it a bridge between East and West, as well as a gatekeeper for crucial energy supplies. Over centuries, this strategic position has allowed it to engage in trade, diplomacy, and conflict with empires and powers across Asia, Europe, and the Arab world. Iran's historical legacy also informs its soft power. Persian culture, literature, language, and religious scholarship have spread across the region, influencing art, architecture, and political thought. This is not just history in books. It is a living memory that continues to shape Iran's modern political psyche. In today's Middle East, this heritage fuels both ambition and resilience. It gives Iran a framework for understanding its role as a counterweight to other regional powers, enabling it to justify its involvement in conflicts and alliances as part of a longer historical mission. This long view of history means that Iran's foreign policy often prioritizes enduring influence over quick wins. Even under international pressure, sanctions, and isolation, Iran draws upon its past as proof that it has weathered storms before and can do so again. In the eyes of its leaders, modern challenges are just another chapter in a centuries-long story of survival, adaptation, and regional leadership. This historical depth makes Iran's moves on the political chessboard deliberate and deeply rooted, not impulsive reactions to current events, but calculated steps grounded in the weight of its civilizational narrative. The 1979 Islamic Revolution was a turning point not only for Iran, but for the entire Middle East, sending political shockwaves that continue to shape the region today. The overthrow of Shah Mohammad Reza Pahlavi ended decades of monarchy aligned closely with Western powers, replacing it with an Islamic republic led by Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini. This was not simply a change in leadership. It was a complete transformation of Iran's political identity, moving from a secular monarchy to a theocratic system that blended religion with governance. For many in the Muslim world, this was an inspiring demonstration of how grassroots movements could topple entrenched regimes, particularly those seen as overly dependent on foreign influence. For others, especially in neighboring monarchies and Western capitals, it was an alarming sign of a new ideological force that could destabilize existing political orders. The revolution's success energized Islamist movements across the region, both Shia and Sunni, who saw in Iran's example a model for political change rooted in faith. However, it also triggered deep fears among Arab monarchies, especially Saudi Arabia, that Iran's revolutionary ideals could spill across borders and challenge their authority. This ideological divide intensified the Shia-Sunni rift, not as a purely religious conflict, but as a geopolitical struggle for leadership in the Muslim world. The revolution also reoriented Iran's foreign policy, making resistance to Western dominance and support for what it called the oppressed central to its global mission. It sought to export its revolutionary ideals, backing political and militant movements that aligned with its vision, further embedding itself in regional conflicts. Economically, the revolution brought turmoil as Western sanctions and the flight of foreign investment disrupted growth. But it also pushed Iran toward self-reliance and closer ties with non-Western partners on the global stage. The revolution redefined Iran's image from a pro-Western ally to a defiant, independent power, willing to confront the United States and its allies. This defiance became a core part of its national narrative, used to rally domestic unity in the face of external threats. The events of 1979 did more than change Iran's government. They altered the balance of power in the Middle East, setting the stage for decades of rivalry, conflict, and shifting alliances that still shape the region's politics today. The rivalry between Iran and Saudi Arabia is one of the most defining dynamics in Middle Eastern politics, shaping alliances, fueling conflicts, and influencing the region's balance of power. At its core, this rivalry is both ideological and geopolitical. On the ideological front, Iran positions itself as the leader of the Shia Muslim world, while Saudi Arabia claims leadership over the Sunni Muslim majority. This sectarian divide, though deeply rooted in history, is often amplified by political ambitions rather than purely religious differences. Both nations see themselves as guardians of the true path of Islam, and this competition extends beyond theology into the very question of who should lead and define the future of the Muslim world. On the geopolitical side, their rivalry is driven by competing national interests, economic influence, and regional dominance. Iran's revolutionary ideology challenges the legitimacy of hereditary monarchies, a direct threat to Saudi Arabia's ruling system. In turn, Saudi Arabia views Iran's expansion of influence through political alliances, proxy groups, and military support as a destabilizing force in the region. The two countries have found themselves on opposite sides of major conflicts, such as in Syria, Yemen, Iraq, and Lebanon, often supporting rival factions to tip the balance of power in their favor. Economically, both are major oil producers and members of OPEC, but they frequently clash over production strategies and pricing policies as each seeks to protect its own market share and political leverage. The rivalry also plays out on a global stage, with Iran forging ties with countries like Russia and China, while Saudi Arabia maintains strong alliances with the United States and Western powers. This alignment with opposing global blocs deepens the polarization in the region, turning local disputes into arenas for broader geopolitical competition. Culturally and symbolically, both nations wield soft power. Saudi Arabia, through its custodianship of Islam's holiest sites in Mecca and Medina, and Iran, through its long history of cultural influence and intellectual leadership in the Shia world. Their contest is not confined to borders. It is a battle for hearts and minds across the Muslim world. This enduring rivalry is not just a series of isolated disputes, but an ongoing strategic contest where every move, whether in diplomacy, economics, or warfare, ripples across the Middle East and beyond. It is a competition without a final battle, one that continues to define the political landscape of the region. Iran's nuclear program has been one of the most contentious issues in modern geopolitics, influencing both its regional standing and its relationship with the wider world. Officially, Iran maintains that its nuclear activities are for peaceful purposes, such as energy production and medical research, citing its right under the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty to develop civilian nuclear technology. Iran has never civilian nuclear technology. However, suspicions from the United States, European powers, Israel, and several regional states stem from the belief that Iran could be using its program as a cover to develop nuclear weapons capability. These concerns have fueled decades of tension, leading to waves of economic sanctions, diplomatic isolation, and even threats of military action. The nuclear issue has also become a strategic tool in Iran's foreign policy, a bargaining chip that allows it to engage with world powers from a position of leverage. The most significant diplomatic effort to address the dispute was the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, JCPOA, in 2015, an agreement between Iran and 6 major powers to limit its nuclear activities in exchange for sanctions relief. For a time, the deal reduced tensions and opened the door to greater economic engagement, but its collapse after the U.S. withdrawal in 2018 reignited hostilities and mistrust. Regionally, Iran's nuclear ambitions are viewed with suspicion and fear by rivals such as Saudi Arabia and Israel, both of whom worry that a nuclear-armed Iran would drastically alter the strategic balance in the Middle East. The possibility of a nuclear arms race in the region remains a real concern, with some states suggesting they would pursue similar capabilities if Iran crossed that threshold. Domestically, the program is a source of national pride, framed by Iranian leaders as a symbol of technological progress, sovereignty, and resistance to foreign pressure. For ordinary Iranians, it represents both a point of pride and a source of hardship, as sanctions tied to the program have severely impacted the economy. This dual nature, part scientific achievement, part political flashpoint, makes the nuclear program one of the most complex and enduring challenges in Iran's modern history. It is not just a matter of uranium enrichment or centrifuges. It is a focal point where questions of national identity, regional rivalry, and global power politics converge, ensuring that it will remain central to any discussion of Iran's role in the Middle East. Iran's influence in the Middle East extends far beyond its borders. Through a complex network of alliances, partnerships, and proxy groups that give it strategic depth without the need for direct military occupation. This approach allows Iran to project power, shape political outcomes, and challenge rivals while maintaining plausible deniability in conflicts. One of the most prominent examples is Hezbollah in Lebanon, a Shia militant and political organization that receives financial, military, and logistical support from Tehran. Hezbollah serves both as a deterrent against Israel and as a means of extending Iran's ideological and strategic reach in the Levant. In Syria, Iran has been a steadfast supporter of President Bashar al-Assad, providing military advisors, weapons, and funding to help the Syrian government survive a protracted civil war. This alliance secures Iran's influence in a key Arab state and ensures a supply route to Hezbollah, strengthening its regional posture. In Yemen, Iran has supported the Houthi movement, which has been engaged in a brutal conflict with a Saudi-led coalition. This has allowed Tehran to pressure Saudi Arabia directly, creating a front in their broader regional rivalry. In Iraq, Iran has cultivated deep ties with Shia political parties and militias, particularly within the Popular Mobilization Forces, giving it considerable sway over the country's political and security landscape. Beyond these direct connections, Iran also engages with Palestinian factions like Hamas and Islamic Jihad, aligning itself with the cause of resistance against Israel and positioning itself as a defender of oppressed Muslims. This network of alliances and proxies is often referred to by analysts as the axis of resistance, a coalition bound by shared opposition to Western influence and Israeli policies in the region. Through these relationships, Iran gains strategic advantages that would be difficult to achieve through conventional state-to-state diplomacy alone. These alliances also give Iran the ability to exert pressure on its adversaries from multiple fronts simultaneously, complicating their strategic calculations. However, this approach comes with risks, as it often draws Iran deeper into regional conflicts and exposes it to accusations of destabilizing neighboring countries. Iran has a conflict with Iraq where the two sides have never debunked have already reached the stage of actually beating. Still, by operating through proxies and aligned governments, Iran has created a web of influence that ensures its voice and interest remain central in Middle Eastern politics, even in places far beyond its own borders. Iran's approach to foreign policy is defined by a constant balancing act between diplomacy and isolation, shaped by both ideological commitments and pragmatic calculations. On one hand, Iranian leaders understand the necessity of engaging with the global community to secure economic stability, access technology, and ease the burden of sanctions. This has led to participation in high-stakes diplomatic initiatives such as the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, where Iran demonstrated its willingness to negotiate with historical adversaries in exchange for tangible economic relief. On the other hand, Iran's revolutionary identity and its emphasis on independence from foreign domination often lead it to adopt policies that alienate Western powers and some regional neighbors. Actions such as support for armed groups, confrontations in the Persian Gulf, and defiance of international demands on its nuclear program feed perceptions of Iran as a destabilizing force, which in turn leads to diplomatic isolation. This duality forces Iran to navigate a narrow path, seeking opportunities for cooperation when they serve its interests, while maintaining a posture of resistance to protect its sovereignty and ideological legitimacy. Relationships with countries like China, Russia, and certain non-Western states provide Iran with alternative avenues for trade and political backing, softening the impact of Western sanctions and isolation. Regionally, Iran's diplomacy often involves back-channel negotiations and quiet agreements, even with rivals, to prevent conflicts from escalating beyond control. Yet these diplomatic overtures are often undermined by incidents that increase tensions, such as attacks on oil tankers or escalations in proxy conflicts. For Iran, the art of survival in the Middle East's volatile political landscape requires adaptability, knowing when to extend a hand and when to clench a fist. The constant interplay between outreach and defiance has allowed Iran to endure decades of pressure without surrendering its core strategic goals. However, this same approach keeps it locked in cycles of mistrust with many nations, limiting the potential benefits of its diplomatic efforts. The result is a foreign policy that is neither fully integrated into the global order nor entirely cut off from it, a liminal position that reflects the country's complex identity and strategic needs. Iran's ability to manage this balancing act will continue to define its role in Middle Eastern politics for years to come. as it seeks to protect its sovereignty while navigating a world that alternates between engagement and confrontation. In the end, Iran's role in Middle Eastern politics is not the story of a single policy, leader, or event. It is the story of a nation that has woven its influence through centuries of history, ideology, and strategy. It is a power that moves not only through its borders, but through ideas, alliances, and a deep sense of identity rooted in its past. From the echoes of the Persian Empire to the tremors of the Islamic Revolution, from the battlefields of Syria to the negotiating tables of Vienna, Iran has remained a player too significant to ignore, too complex to define in simple terms. It stands at the crossroads of cooperation and confrontation, a nation that can be a partner in peace or a challenge to stability, depending on the moment and the perspective. Its rivalries, ambitions, and resilience shape not just the politics of the region, but the very balance of global power. Understanding Iran means understanding that in the Middle East, history is never just history. It is the foundation of every decision, every alliance, every conflict. I wish you strength in your pursuit of knowledge, courage to face complex truths, and the wisdom to see beyond headlines into the deeper forces that shape our world. Thank you for giving your time and attention to this journey through one of the most critical geopolitical stories of our era. May your curiosity never fade, your understanding always deepen, and may the path ahead be as clear as your determination to walk it. Good luck, and thank you.